Today on the Church Revitalization Podcast, we're talking about 3 high-impact strategies that you can implement in 90 days in your aging congregation. Right now, let's go.
Hello, and welcome to the Church Revitalization Podcast, brought to you by the Malphurs Group team, where each week we tackle important, actionable topics to help churches thrive. And now, here's your hosts, Scott Ball and AJ Matthew.
Welcome to the Church Revitalization Podcast. My name is Scott Ball. I'm joined by my friend and co-host, AJ Matthew. AJ, all right. Hey, before we dive into the topic, just want to remind everybody who's listening that the launch of the Healthy Churches Toolkit is happening in less than 3 weeks at the time of the release of this recording. So if you have not already, go to malphursgroup.com/launch to sign up for that. We are going to have our best pricing that we'll ever have at the launch, and you will lock that in for the lifetime of your account. It's not just like a 1 month thing or a 1 year thing. So please be sure that you sign up for that. Happy with lots of you have already signed up, but please go on and sign up for that. The Healthy Churches Toolkit is going to make your life easier, from high quality training that can help you with revitalizing your church, which is something we're talking about today on the podcast, to resources that you can download and apply immediately, templates, tools, resources, assessments, all those things. And also tools that can help you generate common things like, hey, I need to write a Facebook update, but I'm not very creative. Or I need to write something from the bulletin, or I need to write something for this email newsletter. I wish I could just type in the information about this event, but not have to write anything witty or smart or something that's spelled correctly. You can do that within the toolkit. So, and that's just scratching the surface. There's more than we can cover, or that I want to cover in this. That's why I want you to sign up for the launch. We're going to go into detail and show you all the things that the toolkit does. So go to malphursgroup.com/launch and sign up for that. That's happening on October 15th at noon Eastern. Mm-hmm. So please join us for that. Looking forward to that.
And then the public launch is the next day. October 16th will be your first day to register and sign up. You'll get a free trial and then carry on from there. Looking forward to having you in there.
Very much.
All right.
Looking forward to it.
Scott, today we're talking about some strategies for aging congregations, which is a conversation that you and I have with frequency. It's a common thing around churches that, this is the Church Revitalization Podcast. It's the core of our ministry. And so that is the case with a lot of the conversations that we have. My church, the general age population of our church is increasing. Young families are the minority, or they're gone altogether. What can we do? And so, we've got 3 things for you today.
I think before we dive into these, I do want to maybe just address the typical reaction to these things. When a church is aging, they look around the room and they see a lot of white hair and they go, we've got 5 years left or 10 years left, or time is really ticking. It can be easy to think, well, the thing I need to do is we need to hire a younger pastor. We need to start a new ministry. We have to launch, some sort of a campus thing, or let's start a college ministry, or fill in the blank. There's something that's extravagant or expensive, or is going to take a long time to get off the ground. And the focus of this episode is to encourage you that there are things that you can do really soon, like right away. You can pull this off in 90 days or less. Now, I guess my one caveat to that is pick one of these things, and I think you could pull off one of these things in 90 days. We're going to give you 3 things. Maybe don't go for all 3. Maybe pick one and really leaning into that and do it. But any one of these 3 things you could execute in 90 days or less. And I got to tell you, our article this week is very detailed on giving you like practical steps that you can take to get this off the ground within 90 days. So with that, let's hop into these three things you could do.
Yeah, let me also add this in. I think in the conversations that I have, and Scott, I'll bet you hear this a lot too. The language used, pastors speak with a lot of absolutes. Always, never, none. these things, and I know that's how it feels. I think that is the felt situation, that everything is an absolute. And my encouragement always to you guys is take a breath, and kind of think about it with a little bit more, try to maybe removed clarity, that there's always, it's probably not never, it's probably not always, it's probably not none. There's probably a non-zero number of some kind of opportunity or thing about your church. And that's what we want you to lean into. So the progress is always going to start very slow, because you're trying to get this giant boulder moving again, and so try to get the absolutes out of your language and think about the nuance and the minority, the small thing that can happen. And so just want to start with that encouragement, and consider that when you're thinking about this. And that was good advice, Scott. Don't try to do all three of these. Try to do one of these. If you can get one of these going in 90 days, great. Execute on that for 6 months, and then maybe see if you can start another one. So we always would rather see you start making some progress and let it be slow than to try to do too much, have it then feel like another thing, like nothing works for us, and stop. So I'm going to lead with that.
Yeah. All right, let's dive in. Our first one here is host a community service day focused on meeting a local need. Now, that might not sound revolutionary. You might be thinking, really, guys, this is what you're leading off with? But you would be shocked, or maybe you wouldn't, at the number of churches that I work with that are aging, that when we start looking at what they're doing in terms of outreach, they're doing things, but they're not doing things that actually meet a need in the community. They're doing the same thing they've done for 20 years, or even more likely, not that this is a bad thing, but it's not very effective for them as an individual congregation, but they may be outsourcing outreach. They're partnering, they're paying money toward this local, program or this local ministry, but they're not doing any actual boots on the ground work, apart from maybe 2 or 3 people who are really faithful, and every month they go. But as sort of a broad scale effort, they're not doing much of anything. So this sounds very basic, and it is, but start by identifying an actual need in the community that requires you to get outside of your building.
Yeah.
And then go out there and actually meet that need. Go and do that thing. So let's break that down a little bit more.
Yeah, I think a lot of the default thought on this when they're brainstorming ideas is the opposite of what you just said, and it's what can we do? What can we come up with that would get somebody to come to us? Not for church, for our event, but a lot of times the perspective is kind of invitational and not going out. And so I would recommend what you just said, Scott. Where can we go to be seen and to do something, meaningful, and not what can we create that would get somebody to want to come?
We've talked about this on the podcast before, but there's this assumption, most churches kind of jump to, well, we need to do a food drive, or we need to, do a clothing drive, or we need to, and, depending on where you're at, that very much might be a need that's not being met. But very often that's not the case. There's some other pressing thing, or there's already, maybe it is a need in the community, but somebody else is already meeting that need really well. And there's not much that your church can do to add to that in a meaningful way. So find the need that's not being met, or isn't, or is under addressed, like it might be addressed, but not fully. So something like marriage trouble, or providing childcare, or financial issues, or addiction issues, things that are underserved, and meet that need. Don't just go, oh, we'll help the homeless. Well, if the homeless are being helped pretty effectively in other ways, and if you don't actually want homeless people to start showing up on Sunday, which there are a lot of your churches probably don't actually want that, then don't do that. that sounds terrible. I'm not saying don't do things for the homeless. I'm just saying, like, if you're going, we want to reach people and that we want people to come, do the thing that reaches the people that you actually want to reach and that you want to build a relationship with.
Yeah.
Because the way that we help the homeless lots of times, AJ, is things that are like, we're giving you this, now please go away. It's not inviting you in. So if you're like ready to bring those folks in, which I would love it for you to do that, that's probably going to be a different kind of ministry than a lot of your churches are going to want to do in the first place.
I really like their marriage thing. You know, I mean, there's ministries like Re-Engage that a lot of churches engage with that makes it easy to implement. There's a plan, a process for that, a program. But yeah, I mean, one commonality between a lot of aging churches that I go into are healthy marriages that have endured decades. And so, you know, you've got something marketable there to kind of use business language with this, because there's a lot of marriages in trouble. And so this might be a great mentor thing that you would be able to implement to invite younger couples that are having issues in through a great biblical process and be able to help them along and show them how to stay together for 50, 60, 70 years. So, I think that's a good one.
Yeah. So that'd be the first one. The first one is find an actual need in the community. And if you don't know, start by talking to community leaders, find out what those needs are. And then proactively do something to meet that need. That can be partnering with an organization, but don't just send them a check. Get boots on the ground and help. Yeah. It could be like AJ mentioned, finding a program like Re-Engage or Celebrate Recovery, something that already has a system, MOPS, that they already have an infrastructure that you can just implement in your own context. That makes it a little bit easier. But you definitely can do this, and you can do it in 90 days because we're asking you to find one problem that you can address that requires you to get outside of your own walls, outside of yourself, and serve someone else. You can definitely do this in 90 days or less.
You can. All right. Let's talk about our second one, which I think is really kind of fun. And it's a partner to what we were just talking about. And we're calling this Grand Friends. Grand Friends. Launch a Grand Friends mentoring program. And I mean, sort of like what this would be in a marriage situation, but this is get engaged with the kids. So would it be possible for you to get into schools, maybe even daycare, pre-K, different things like this, where you, an aging individual, a senior adult, could spend some time with younger people, helping them through just life's troubles, schoolwork, these kinds of things. And again, there are programs out there that a lot of churches have implemented in schools. But we're talking about you, the aging adult population of believers. And so I think we didn't trademark that. You're welcome to use it. Maybe somebody already has. You can do your due diligence on that.
Yeah, I was going to say, if someone's already, we're not trying to copyright infringe.
So yeah, I think this could be fun.
Yeah, my kid's school has a program called Reading Buddies. And where people can come in, and they're mainly working with like pre-K and kindergartner aged kids. They come in a couple of times a week and they read with kids one-on-one, and they develop those relationships. So maybe your school system already has a program like this that you can get involved in. I think that sometimes we think everything we do has to be strictly, putting a tract in someone's hand, and that every interaction must inevitably lead to, the Romans Road and a prayer for salvation. And that's often not how it works. It starts with just building good relationships so that you can earn that permission to then talk about the Lord. And depending on the situation, if you're working in a public school, you're probably not going to be able to have that kind of a conversation in school anyway during school hours. But you could get involved in other ways, like, start volunteering at your local FCA. They usually meet really early. My son goes to FCA as middle school. It's at I think it's at 6:45 a.m. On Wednesday mornings, something like that. And so, you could You could help with an FCA program. A lot of you have preschool programs on your own campus, but they operate as their own separate ministries, and you don't have anything to do with them. They don't have anything to do with you. That's a mistake. You need to lean in. Like, you have this built-in opportunity to connect with these families. I hear a lot of churches that are in that situation. They go, "We don't have any young families." And I'm like, yeah, you do. You have young families who show up at your campus 5 days a week. And you let them come at 8:30 and drop off their kids and pick up their kids at 1:00 or whatever it is. And you never talk to them. You're not building a relationship with them.
Yeah.
So we can't tell you exactly how to execute this, but just this idea of, if you've got a lot of people who have gray hair, that means you probably have a disproportionate number of people who have some degree of flexibility in your schedule that someone who's in the middle of their career doesn't. So you can build into kids and you can build into families in ways that other people can't. But that's going to probably require you to give something up. Maybe 2 p.m. on a Wednesday is bingo normally, and you got to give that up. I don't know. What do the retired people play? Was that too stereotypical? You got to give up that time to go read to kids.
Yeah. A lot of I'm not a lawyer and this is not legal advice, but I think generally speaking, as far as like public schools go, what can be talked about in a religious, kind of scenario is outside of school hours, though it might be hosted on site at a school. After school programs, before school programs, generally speaking, are religious institutions can engage in that stuff. So don't think that the door is closed on that, even if you're in a part of the country maybe that is not quite as friendly to the gospel as other parts of the country or the world, but yeah.
Here in our area, there's even this program. It's called like Bible Buddies or something like that, and it happens. I don't know. It's always felt a little bit creepy to me the way that it's executed. So here you go. Like, I'm not signing my kids up for this.
Okay.
So, but maybe a better execution. Take the idea and do it better, and maybe people will sign up for it. But it
kind of leaving us with a bit of a cliffhanger there, Scott. You got something called Bible Buddies that's creepy, and then you're moving on.
No. I'm going to explain it. All right. So I'll try to do this quickly. I think the way that it works is 1 day a month or 1 day a week. I'm not sure about the frequency. Kids are picked up from school during school hours, and they go to a local church, and they do like a Bible study, and then they are bused back to the school. So it's like a thing that happens during school hours. This is one of those weird accommodation things that they've allowed for, because like if you're a Muslim kid and they do Friday prayers, those kids are allowed to leave school to go and do Friday prayer.
See. Okay.
So this is like one of those situations where there's got to be parity. So if there's like a comparable type program, you can sign your kid up. But what's crazy to me, is that the sign up for Bible Buddies comes through the school. Like, your kid can sign up for Bible Buddies. Just stick a little flyer. And so what's creepy about it is it's an old guy in a van comes, picks up your kids. You don't know exactly where they're going. They're going to some church, and then they're coming back. I'm sure you
could probably find out exactly where they're going, right?
Yeah.
They're not keeping that a secret, or
no.
Okay.
No. But I mean, everything about it, like the marketing around it, communicates.
Maybe it lacks detail that would be helpful.
It lacks some detail and polish that would make someone feel like this is a safe thing for my kid to go to.
So you're listening from the Bible Buddies program. Give a little help on that. Get some professionals to work on your marketing for you.
There you go.
Okay.
I think it's called Bible Buddies or something like that. Or Good News. I don't know. I don't know. Don't remember the name. But yeah, your mileage may vary. But the idea of some mentoring, it doesn't have to be at a public school. It could be, and I probably would target, like, if your church has a preschool and you don't have a program like this is a huge gap, and obviously an easy thing that you can and should implement in less than 90 days.
And man, we talk with a lot of churches that have preschools, and it is like rarely is there a good connection. Churches and schools
It's got to be under 20% have a good
rarely
relationship.
interface well. And it always starts off with the best of intentions. Then we could probably do a whole separate episode on, does your church have a preschool or a school, and how to capitalize on that?
Oh man, one of the churches I've worked with, we need to have Kevin on sometime. Maybe Kevin, maybe you're listening, because at a church I've worked with, they previously had this situation where they had a preschool there, and it really wasn't a very healthy and good relationship, and so it kind of deteriorated. In fact, they closed the preschool years later, actually going through our strategic envisioning process. And by the way, having a conversation about how they wanted to having a vision for reaching the next generation, they decided to reopen the preschool program. It is now booming, and they have this very healthy relationship with that. They see it as a ministry of the church. The lady who runs it is a staff member of the church, and she's not treated like a weird pseudo staff member. She's actually a staff member. High degree of integration between the children's ministry and that program, and it is going just nuts. And the church has grown a ton, not in any small part due to what's happening with their preschool program.
Yeah,
so we should have Kevin on sometime to talk about it.
Yeah, we should do that. I mean, I last month was working with a church in the Philippines, and this is going to be a key piece of their vision going forward. They have a school now, and they really would like to have this be better integrated in the church, and that's something that they're getting started working on. So yeah, it can be a great. It's such an untapped potential in a lot of churches. So. All right, good stuff. All right, our last one is getting engaged with trying to target, I should say, maybe new residents in your area, in your city, your township, whatever it might look like, with some kind of a personalized gift for them to begin. Well, first of all, just for goodwill, but with the hopes that maybe you could begin some kind of a conversation or relationship with them. So, and again, I think this is a great one that can get people engaged. I'm not talking about calling, the local florist and just having something sent over. I mean, this is a great hands-on thing. Getting, the pieces of a gift basket together. You can get people together that can put these things, assemble them, pray over them, and personalize them with notes and various information. So, I think this is a great one that you can get people engaged in pretty quickly.
Yeah, Outreach has a program called the I think it's called a New Mover program.
Talking Outreach.com.
Outreach.com, has a program called New Mover postcards. So you can get a list, and you have to target it by zip code. You can get all the details on their website. Actually, I think you can do it within a certain mileage radius around your church, and they'll send the postcards. But you also get those addresses, and you find out who those people are. So you can do something that's automated, but those automated things aren't that effective. It's the personalized thing. So actually, the same church that is doing so well with their preschool program, they also are doing a really good job with this, and they've actually refined this. I had a conversation with them not that long ago about how when they first started doing this, it really wasn't very effective. But then they've really optimized it, and they found that what really works well is the baskets. So they create like a welcome kit that includes like coupons and gift cards and things to local businesses, and so that they can say, hey, here's a great grocery store and a good coffee shop and all these kinds of things, like welcome to the neighborhood. And then they also include information about their church, but it's genuinely to serve them and to welcome them to the neighborhood. It is not just a sales pitch for their church, and they have had a lot of success with that. And it's a long play, right? Like someone's not going to get that basket and then show up at your church the next Sunday, but if they are, we've talked about this on the podcast too, and I got this from a book down here. Hold on. Let me find it. Give credit. Boomerang.
Yeah.
if this is from the guys at Texton Church, and they say that they got this from someone else too, but I don't know who they got it from. But it's this idea of 5 Ds for reasons why someone would come to a church: divorce, death in the family, displacement, disaster, or development. Displacement is a move. So when people move, they are looking for community. They're looking for a place to connect. So you're immediately tapping into that. And think about all these things we've recommended so far, AJ. They all connect to one of these 5 Ds.
Yeah.
Divorce, death in the family, displacement, disaster, development. When you address one of those 5 Ds, you are tapping into a reason why someone might care about what it is that you have to say.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Yep.
The new mover program is really good.
This is one of those where, like I talked about at the top of the show, your town is not booming, it's not growing, and your thought is nobody is moving into our town, and it's another one of those absolutes in the language that we probably need to get rid of. It's probably a non-zero number of people that are moving into your town, and so maybe it is a very low number. We had 3 new people move in last year. Okay. That's not going to be a widespread program from that angle. I would probably still reach out to those folks, but don't think about this in absolutes. See what the numbers actually are, and maybe even broaden your radius a little bit to capture something a little bit bigger. But even throughout this episode, Scott, I've been thinking of a particular church that I worked with earlier this year, and right there near the church, in historic part in the east, historic city in the east, outside of their town, there was some newer construction happening. It kind of felt like there wasn't if you were right there in the middle of the town, but just a little bit out there was. So I think if you look around a little bit, you could probably find ways of tapping into these options.
Just real quick. I did a 2-mile radius just now on Outreach. Outreach has a thing where you can type in your church's address and set a mile radius around it and see, what would it cost for their program, because they're trying to sell a program to you. But it shows you how many movers per month. So my 2 miles from my house, and I don't live in like a major metropolitan area like
you're
AJ over
out.
Booming. We had last month 20 movers, which I know that's not a huge number, but imagine, could you foresee your church making a meaningful connection with 20 families that moved? It's an average of 16 a month, 16 movers a month.
Well, that would be ideal. For like our church, we've got 52 people left in our church. They're all over the age of 67. But 20 people moved in. That's a great sounding number. Now, if you get your list back and it's 4,200 people moved into your town last month, you're overwhelmed. You're going to have to narrow that down. You could whittle down the size of the radius, but if you go, okay, could our church make a meaningful connection with 20 families? You're not going to get all 20 of those families are not going to show up at your church. Yeah.
It's not about that. You have to get outside the framework of thinking that everything is a sales pitch.
Yeah, right.
For your church.
In fact, this was an idea I had before we went on air, Scott. If you could include something in there that you could be praying for them. Now, and this might be a stretch on the tech thing, but even a QR code, a postcard with a QR code, ask your grandkids to help you set this up. It's not that hard. Where they could simply scan it, takes them to a prayer request form that would send an email into your team, and you could hear about that. What a great way to connect with somebody, again, who maybe is experiencing one or more of those 5 Ds because, for whatever reason, they have changed where they live. That would be a great, low, I don't know what the word I'm looking for from the receiver's perspective. It's a very easy thing that they could do, and maybe it can open a conversation for you.
Yeah, the point I'm trying to emphasize that if you want to reach more people and see your church grow, which is a fine thing to want and a good thing to want, it starts with genuinely caring about other people and doing right by them, whether or not they ever show up to your church. And I promise you, if you can get into that frame of reference and frame of mind and frame of acting and behaving in your community, people will notice. It's like, this is why the Bible, I think, uses a tree and fruit metaphor. When you fruit on a tree exists for the benefit of those who come and eat of it, but when a tree is flowering and it's blossoming and it has all this fruit and it's laden with fruit, it's attractive to those people. So the goal of the fruit is to serve and to nourish and to benefit the people. But and so I think you have to have that frame of mind. Like, we're going to go and we're going to serve the community relentlessly, whether anyone shows up or not. And I think if you can do that from a genuine heart, you'll be surprised at how the Lord blesses that and how people respond to that.
Yeah, for sure. Because a lot of these churches, these smaller aging churches, are asking themselves, is God done with us here? Are we supposed to carry on? This is a vision question. And so I think putting a little bit of effort into this, you doing the work, and see what God can bless, will answer that question for you.
I would respond, are you done serving your community?
Yeah.
I mean, I think God is done. God will remove the lampstand when you've stopped desiring to be a light.
Yeah.
So,
might be tough to hear. Yeah, go get him.
There you go. On that encouraging note, we'll wrap this thing up.
Yeah, because we believe that's definitely a last resort. That is true. More often than not, we see that there is purpose there for you. There is work to be done. So go for the heart change, seek the Lord in it, and ask Him where you can re-engage in your community. And that will bring to a conclusion episode 260 of the Church Revitalization Podcast. So go to malfirstgroup.com/260 for this week's show notes. As Scott mentioned at the top of the show, there is a lot of detail this week. There's a lot of bullet points and action steps. So you're going to want to go have a look at that. And various other links over there that might be helpful to you. If you would like to engage with us, talk about how we can help lead your church through this kind of work, we'd be glad to do that through our strategic envisioning process. And as we mentioned at the top of the show as well, be sure to go to malfirstgroup.com/launch to register for the toolkit launch, so you can learn about these tools and resources that we've developed to help your church grow. And I think you'll find that to be encouraging and helpful. And we would love to see you on October 15th at 12 noon as we walk you through what the toolkit includes and how it can be helpful in your church. Thanks for being with us. We'll see you next week.